During Tuesday's meeting, City Council approved the ballot language for the two items on the November ballot. The first was the language for the charter amendments. This was the second reading of the changes and was approved unanimously. Second was the ballot language for the Sanctuary City for the Unborn ordinance. The City Council also approved the language unanimously. The ballot language highlights the following parts of the 18-page ordinance. First, it will declare the city of Amarillo a sanctuary city for the unborn. It will declare abortion at all times and at all stages of the pregnancy unlawful unless it is performed to save the life of a pregnant woman in a medical emergency. It will also make the following unlawful within the city of Amarillo: performing abortions on an Amarillo resident, abortion, trafficking of an unborn child, transportation or disposal of remains of an unborn child, possession or distribution of abortion-inducing drugs, and organization facilitating abortions. It will also make it possible for those who violate the ordinance to be sued through a private right of action. That paragraph is just a small summary of the 18 pages that make up the Sanctuary City for the Unborn ordinance. So this week, we're going to also look at the language of the ordinance itself. Politics Today's Andy Justice and photojournalist Devin Singleton put together a breakdown of the sections included in the 18-page ordinance and what changes it will make if approved by voters.
Part A of the ordinance goes over findings. Primarily, this section of the ordinance covers the following. It states that the City Council finds that human life begins at conception. Abortion is a murderous act of violence that purposefully and knowingly terminates unborn human life. That unborn human beings are entitled to the full and equal protection of the laws that prohibit violence against other human beings. And that outlawing abortion within the city of Amarillo is necessary to protect the health and welfare of all residents and ensure federal prohibitions on the shipment of abortion pills and paraphernalia are obeyed. Part B of the ordinance goes over declarations. This section of the ordinance primarily does the following. Declares Amarillo to be a sanctuary city for the unborn. Declares that abortion at all times and at all states of pregnancy is an unlawful act unless the abortion is performed to save the life of the pregnant woman in a medical emergency. Declares abortion-inducing drugs to be contraband and makes it unlawful to manufacture, possess, or distribute abortion-inducing drugs in Amarillo. This section also encourages all victims of abortion providers and abortion pill distribution networks to sue those enterprises under civil RICO. Part C of the ordinance is where several of the changes you've heard about are covered as it highlights amendments to City Code. Section 861 covers definitions for this ordinance. We aren't going to cover all of the definitions and sections in Part C, just some of the most important ones and their exceptions. The term abortion does not include in vitro fertilization or fertility treatments of any type, the use or administration of Plan B, morning after pills, intrauterine devices, or any other type of contraception. An act performed with the purpose to save the life or preserve the health of the unborn child, remove a dead unborn child caused by spontaneous abortion, or the removal of an ectopic pregnancy. The term abortion-inducing drugs includes mifepristone, misoprostol, and any drug or medication that is used to terminate the life of an unborn child. That term does not include Plan B, morning after pills, and any other types of contraception. It also does not include medications that are distributed for a purpose that does not include the termination of a pregnancy. The last definition we'll highlight is conduct that aids or abets an elective abortion. According to this ordinance, that includes but is not limited to some of the following: providing transportation to or from an abortion provider, giving instructions on how to self-administer or obtain an elective abortion, creating a computer service or website that facilitates efforts to obtain elective abortions, providing money or resources with the knowledge that it will be used to obtain an abortion or any type of donation to an abortion provider or fund, providing referrals to an abortion provider, and pressuring a pregnant woman to have an abortion against her will. Section 862 is the section in the ordinance that declares abortion is prohibited within city limits. Here's how it reads. It shall be unlawful for any person to procure or perform an elective abortion of any type and at any stage of pregnancy in the city of Amarillo. That prohibition extends to drug-induced abortions in which any portion of the drug regimen is ingested in the city. This section also states that it shall be unlawful for any person to knowingly engage in conduct that aids or abets an elective abortion. This section does not prohibit abortions performed or induced in response to a medical emergency or the conduct to aid such abortions, conduct taken by a pregnant woman who aborts or seeks to abort her unborn child. Section 863 outlaws abortions on Amarillo residents and states, "It shall be unlawful for any person to knowingly perform an elective abortion or engage in conduct that aids or abets an elective abortion if that abortion is performed on an Amarillo resident, regardless of the location of that abortion, regardless of the law in the jurisdiction where the abortion occurred, and regardless of whether the person knew or should have known the abortion was performed on an Amarillo resident." Exceptions to this section are abortions performed or induced in response to a medical emergency, conduct taken by a pregnant woman who aborts or seeks to abort her unborn child. Section 864 prohibits abortion trafficking of an unborn child and states that it shall be unlawful for any person to knowingly transport any individual for the purpose of providing or obtaining an elective abortion, regardless of where the elective abortion will occur. This section only applies if the transportation begins, ends, or passes through the city of Amarillo. It also says it shall be unlawful for any person to aid or abet that travel, such as offering money or other resources. The mother of the unborn child, however, cannot be subject to prosecution or penalty or civil liability. Section 865 details abortion-inducing drugs prohibited. This section makes it unlawful for any person to manufacture, possess, or distribute abortion-inducing drugs in Amarillo. As we mentioned before, that includes mifepristone, misoprostol, and any drug or medication that is used to terminate the life of an unborn child. That term does not include Plan B, morning after pills, and other types of contraception. It also does not include medications that are distributed for a purpose that does not include the termination of a pregnancy. Section 867 outlaws the disposal of the remains of an unborn child killed by an elective abortion and reads as follows. It shall be unlawful for any person to transport the remains of an unborn child who is killed by an elective abortion from any provider in the city of Amarillo or to dispose of such remains within the city. This section also states that the mother of the unborn child cannot be subject to prosecution or penalty or civil liability. The last section we'll be highlighting is Section 868, which is what allows for private right of action. It states, any person other than the city of Amarillo and any officer or employee of the city has standing to bring and may bring a civil action against any person or entity that violates any provision of this chapter or intends to violate any provision of this chapter.
If you'd like to check out the full text of the ordinance yourself or watch that overview again, we'll have it posted for you over on our website, myhighplains.com.